Chrissy Fruen. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Doing great. Where are you, Chrissy?
I am in Virginia in a little town called North Dinwiddie, so about 40 miles-ish south of Richmond.
Well, let's talk about how we know each other. You and I both graduated 1988 from Punahou School in Honolulu, Hawaii.
Yes.
On top of that, we spent a lot of time together in German class.
Yes.
I'm really picking off my German class friends in this.
I noticed.
So, Chrissy Fruen, who are the Fruens? Where do they come from, and how do they end up in Hawaii?
So they were actually Fruen Zimmerman, so Jewish family from Boston, actually, or the Boston area, Massachusetts area. And there's actually still a Fruen Street, Fruen Way in Boston. Um, Not really clear. I think they were whalers and they ended up in Samoa. They married Samoan um, gals. So by the time it got to my dad, I'm Samoan, mostly Samoan.
And tell me about your mother's side of the family.
So my mom was from Wheaton, Illinois. Her mom is was Polish, and her dad was French Canadian.
What was your mother's last name?
Her last name was Richards. So my grandfather, well, it was supposed to be Richard, but ended up being Richards, and my grandmother's maiden name was Corcus.
Tell me more about your father growing up in Samoa. What was his life like? Describe the physical setting.
Yeah, so he grew up in a village in Apia called Faleula, and his both of his parents passed away when he was very young, and I believe his mom passed away like right after he was born. So he was raised by his grandmother. He decided he wanted to be a doctor because his there was no medical care there, or no adequate medical care there. So he ended up in Hawaii with relatives there. Didn't have more than a seventh, eighth grade education. Ended up in Laie and worked different, odd jobs, and somehow talked the president of what is now BYU into admitting him into college, even though he didn't graduate from high school. So they did on a trial basis, and he worked his way through college there and ended up graduating. So, yeah, very proud of that.
That's amazing. Was your father Mormon?
Yes. Hmm. Yeah.
You're, you're,
My
you're, you're, you're
mom is
you're talking,
Catholic, dad is Mormon.
you're talking to the right guy. I've got
His lifelong goal was to take care of, you know, Samoan people, Polynesian people. So, after he became a doctor, he opened a clinic in Laie to serve the, Polynesian people, and then later opened another clinic in Kalihi and took care of people. He would invent new words because there were not words for there were not words for medical terms. So he would put out this newsletter made on Microsoft Publisher, and he would had a column in there that was all of these new words he invented so that he could educate people, because it was kind of taboo to talk about your body, but people needed to know how to take care of themselves. And that was one way he did that. He also had a long-standing radio show on KNDI, and he would go there and he would talk about medical topics, and he loved music. So in between, he'd play music, he'd take calls and answer questions. And
amazing. What was your father's name?
his name is William Fruen, and he just passed away. He just passed away. I went back to Hawaii for the first time in 19 years to lay him to rest in Punch Bowl with my mom and my grandmother.
Did he describe his growing up years as being poor? How did he describe it?
Yes, yes, they were very poor. Yes, Yeah. So that's why he didn't finish school, because he had to work to help his grandmother, um, help his grandmother support the family. Yeah.
Where do you think his ambition and entrepreneurial spirit came from?
Well, like I said, that moment that his grandmother passed, and he always told me he was holding her when she passed away, and there was nothing he could do. He felt helpless, and that was what drove him, to become a doctor and take care of his people.
Would you say that in the Hawaiian Samoan community that he was well known? Was he
Yes,
would he go places and people would recognize him?
yes, yes. And he did not know a stranger. And if people didn't know him, they knew him after the time they spent together with him. Yes, he was a people magnet, very different from me. I did not inherit that social gene.
Well, you, like many members of our class, you are an amicable person with a sense of humor. So I don't know how reclusive you think you are, but I always remember you as being, outgoing and friendly.
Well, yeah, a little. I think I made myself that way because I wasn't. I had very low self-esteem. In inwardly, wallflower, but you know, everyone else had this awesome personality. I had this sister with this big, beautiful personality. She's still that way. So yeah, I think I made myself out to be wild and crazy just to put on a front, I guess it is.
We'll get into that, but let's talk about how your parents met. How did they meet, and what do you think led to their deciding to get married?
So this is a fun story. My dad um, joined the military. He joined the Air Force and ended up stationed in Arizona. My mom, my mom and her parents moved there, and there was this club there, or like I don't know, like a nightclub. And my dad was one of the performers there. So he was a fire knife dancer, and he sang, played music. And my mom was like obsessed with Hawaii, and I guess as everyone was in those days, but she and her parents would go to that club all the time. So my dad said he saw her and he fell in love with at first sight. And he annoyed my grandmother, my mom's mom, because he followed them home that night and played guitar outside of her window. So that's how they met. And my mom thought he was annoying, but they ended up getting married anyway.
Anyone within your broader family who did not fully embrace the marriage of your parents?
Yes, my dad's relatives did not. The ones that, he ended up moving with in Hawaii. Um, Not because she was white, but because she was Catholic and not Mormon. So they didn't approve. My mom's parents loved my dad. They got married, and it wasn't until after all of um, my siblings and I, until we were born and we came back to Hawaii, that they were okay with it. After they met, the children, then they were okay with it, and then embraced my mom and her family.
So you had a number of influences growing up. Let's just talk about maybe the Samoan side of things. What languages were spoken at home, and what did your father tell you about being Samoan? What did he want you to understand about it?
So this is the part where I make myself out to be a jerk, because um, he was very proud about being Samoan. He never spoke it in our home. He taught us songs, in all languages, and Polynesian languages, because he loved music and we loved that part. But he never taught us to speak it. Um, At times I was embarrassed to be Samoan, which is embarrassing for me to say now and to admit it. Um, and I regret it now. And my sister and I both regret not having learned the language.
You were in Hawaii, where there is a large, obviously, Polynesian population, including Samoans. Why do you think that you've had mixed feelings about being Samoan?
I think it was when I was in elementary school, some people made fun of me because of it. And I guess um, I just think maybe the stereotype, and people would joke about it and that you're big and kind of uncouth. I don't know. I mean, I feel like that really dug into me, so um and it wasn't until I came to Punahou and then Matt was there and Satini, and I was like, wow, there's other people like me here. So yeah, because there weren't any. When I went to elementary school in Mililani, and there were no other Samoan kids that I knew of except for my siblings and I. So I mean, it felt like like an oddball.
Let's talk about religion. Were you religious growing up? Was there an agreement in your home about what mixture of Mormonism versus Catholicism was going to be promoted?
I don't know how my parents agreed on it, but we were raised in the Catholic Church. And I'm not I'm not religious anymore because of, things that happened throughout my life. But so we went to church in Mililani, the St. John's Catholic Church there.
Mormonism and Catholicism are both high commitment religions. Do you remember feeling any strictures? Were there rules that you were expected to follow, or was it a little bit loosey goosey, like you guys would go to Catholic church sometimes and yeah?
We would go every Sunday. My grandmother, because my grandmother lived with us, she was devoutly Catholic. But they had this other side where they would, when her sisters would come to visit from Chicago, they get together and they'd be having these, their wine coolers and mixed drinks. So I learned how to mix drinks at a very young age.
You're probably one of the most advanced Mormon bartenders in all of Hawaii at the time. Real quick follow-up question about your dad. Did he speak with an accent?
Yes, he had a British accent. Mm-hmm. He was very proud of that British accent. As he got older, there were certain things that you could still hear him say, like my daughter, he would say that.
How old were you when you moved to Hawaii?
I was one. So my parents were Air Force at the time. So they were in Arizona. My sister was born there. And then they got stationed in Mississippi. That's where I was born, Biloxi, Mississippi, Keesler Air Force Base. Then moved to Hawaii, 1971.
You grew up in Hawaii in the 1970s. Paint a picture for us of some, I guess, highlights from your childhood days.
Well, my mom enrolled us with Iolani School of Dance when I was 5. So I grew up Polynesian dancing. And my sister loved it. She was a natural. I guess I was okay at it, but like I told you, I'm a wallflower, and I didn't like being put in front of people. And Iolani would yell at me all the time because I wouldn't smile. I didn't like to smile because I just felt so self-conscious. But looking back on it now, I'm grateful for that. We got to do things like we danced at the Hula Bowl halftime show. We danced on a cruise ship. We got to meet, all kinds of people, dance at all these weddings and things like that. And got to eat good food, good luau food all the time. But yeah, so that was a fun thing growing up. It wasn't fun at the time, but now that I'm looking back on it, there were just so many great experiences. We were in 2 commercials from being with Iolani. So
Advertising what?
2 airline commercials.
So you were in the commercial to give the viewers a sense of like this is Hawaii. This
Exotic, beautiful
right.
paradise. Yes.
This
But
is
I was
what
a
you
kid.
can
I
expect
was a
if you
kid.
come to
I don't
Hawaii.
know.
Was it hula or was it a more expansive set of styles?
It was a more expansive set of, so we did hula, Tahitian, Maori, even some Filipino dancing, tinikling. I learned how to do that. I kept getting my, if you're not familiar with it, it's, the bamboo and you kind of jump through it. I kept getting my ankle slammed in those bamboo poles, but I eventually learned how to do it. I did not have good coordination, but I eventually learned how to do it.
Well, let's fast forward to seventh grade. Seventh and eighth grade, I think universally around the world, most people will say that those are awkward years.
Oh yeah.
What was it like for you? What do you remember? You were new to Punahou. You were, in seventh grade, which is already a little bit of a minefield. So what are your memories of sort of mixing in with your fellow classmates and with just the Punahou ecosystem generally?
I felt like an outcast because Mililani at that time was like in the middle of the pineapple fields with, and it felt like moving from the country. It was like I was this little fish in a big pond. And everyone, their lifestyles were different. Even though my dad was a doctor, we did not live this big fancy life. We were just like this middle class family. And
How did you perceive that other families had more money than your family? What were the signals and the clues to you?
um, well, everyone had brand name clothes and I didn't. And my grandmother, when I would ask about it, my grandmother was like, absolutely not. When we would go visit relatives on the mainland, we would buy clothes at Kmart.
What's a brand from the 80s you remember coveting?
Oh, everyone wore Esprit. All the girls wore Esprit. Benetton. I remember once telling Mr. Knowlton that I had horses because I knew people in our class that had horses, and I wanted to be one of those people that had. So I had an aunt that had horses, and we went to visit her in Arizona one summer. And I brought these pictures back, and I told him I had these horses. And years later, he asked me how my horses were, and I was like, "What are you talking about?" And I'm like, "Oh my gosh!" So yeah, lots of cringeworthy things, and I guess I could chalk it up to being a kid.
Did you continue to dance at Punahou? You were in
I did.
the mid age,
So
right?
yes, yes. So my first year there, I tried out for the Mayday program and actually was chosen as one of the court. But I remember it being a big controversy because, and I don't know if anyone else remembers this, but I think you had to be Hawaiian to try out. Do you remember this? I mean,
Yeah,
I
I remember back in
okay.
those days, in order to be in the court of May Day, you had to be Hawaiian or part Hawaiian.
Yes. So I wasn't, but I tried out and I don't know if I didn't know about it till afterward or what, but it was a big controversy and people were upset because I got chosen and I'm not Hawaiian. And being new, being the new kid at the school, it was like it was devastating for me and I felt like, man, these people can't stand me. And so I felt even more like closing up into this shell. But I remember Kumu, Mr. Eldridge, brought me into his room one day and he's like, so I've heard there's a lot going on about, you being chosen for court and that you have to be Hawaiian and you're not. And I'm like, okay, he's going to tell me I can't be on it. And he said, well, where did Hawaiians come from? He's like, they're Polynesian and you're Polynesian. So he's like, you're going to stay on the court. So that, I mean, since that day, that was like, he stuck up for me. So that's something that I remember, and kind of hold dear, feeling like this big jerk and then someone comes and defends you and yeah, that was special to me.
So how do you think you fit in general across 4 years of high school?
I felt like I was down the bottom of the totem pole, but you know, I had that group at the mod bench. um, so
Talk about that, because I was going to say I remember that you did have a personal style that was, not plain Jane. It was there's sort of a tie-in to kind of music, maybe like new wave. I don't want to explain it
yeah,
for you, but just talk about how you saw yourself, what you think you and your friends had in common, and for those who don't know, what was the mod bench?
the mod bench was a bench under a tree right in front of the library. I heard it's not there anymore, but it was a lot of people with, I don't know, I guess like we had alternative um, style and like alternative music, I guess, new wave, punk, Eric, I would remember bringing my Tower Records bag because after school, my sister and I would go there and buy some records and then bring it to school the next day to show people. And yeah, fond memories of that.
Who were some of the top bands that you spent the most time listening to in those days?
Oh, for sure. Joy Division, New Order, uh, The Cure, The Smiths. I still listen to in my car, and I've got my kids listening to that too. So that's pretty cool.
It all holds up pretty well.
It does, yeah.
You can't say that that is sort of universally uplifting music. There's a little bit of a
It's
dark element to it. So where do you think that came from? Were you drawn to that, or was it
I
was it
was.
peer group?
I think I still am because it's like the woe is me, this girl that doesn't have friends. Like, oh, yes. Yeah, that's that was my teenage life. Hmm.
I think kids these days don't realize that, way before the era of the internet, like music was very important because that was sort of like this cultural product that you'd get, and you didn't have much more information about it. You just knew
Yeah.
that the songs were important. To talk a little bit about sort of the central role of music in, I guess, the mod bench friendships, or just sort of that as being a commonality among your friends.
Well, I mean, music in those days, music for me was like it was everything. I mean, from the when I woke up, I had my little tape player in my room and making these mixtapes. So I was lucky that my dad was really into music. So he had this great stereo system, and I would, make my mixtapes on there and um, listen to it in the car because we were driving from Mililani to Punahou, which was, in traffic, it was long. So listening to my music in the car all the way there, and it was just a big, big part of life. I mean, it still is now for me. My group of friends, we all liked the same thing, and like I said, we would trade records and make mixtapes for each other and stuff like that.
What did your dad think of Joy Division?
So it's funny. I don't know if he liked Joy Division, but and I don't even remember what song it was, but he was funny. He was just a very happy person and very funny. And, like I said, he was a people magnet, but I have a memory of him driving me to school in his Mazda RX-7. And I would put my music on. I'd just take over, his little sound system in the car, and I'd put my tape in, and we'd be driving in traffic. And I don't remember what song it was, but he'd be drumming on the steering wheel because he turned it up real loud, and he'd be looking at the people next to me. And I'm like, oh my God, Dad, it's so embarrassing. But
Can you describe sort of what you'd wear on a given day? Like what were some important elements of your style?
so just things that I would see in magazines, what the musicians were wearing. And I wasn't allowed to cut my hair, which was difficult when these hairstyles were these short and like edgy things. And it was hard for me because I wasn't allowed to cut my hair because of dance, because of hula. Um, until my senior year. I finally chopped it all off, but yeah, just a lot of black. I was, I shouldn't say was, overweight. So the things that look cute on people in the magazines didn't look cute on me, but lots of black things. There was a time when Megan Moore and I were into these bolo ties because it was like, I don't remember which bands, the church wore them a lot too.
Academically, what were some topics that you think you went the furthest with? What were some topics or teachers or classes that you feel like you really connected with?
So I was not a good student at all, at all. I believe I have and had ADD because, it was tough for me to sit and listen and focus. And I'm still that way now, but I've found ways to cope with it. But back then it was hard. And I was not good in anything but German. I was an excellent German student and I loved it. And I just loved the German culture, and which is why I ended up going on the exchange twice. But I just couldn't perform the way everyone else in our school or how I perceived them to be. And so that was another thing that I felt made me different from everybody.
I mean, back in those days, I mean, today, if you've got just a little bit of ADHD, ADD, you figure it out pretty quick. There's medicine. You get certain accommodations at school. Back in those days, it was just like pay attention. Like what are you doing?
Yes.
There wasn't a sense of like maybe these people have slightly different brains.
Yes. And I felt like at a private school, like that wasn't like nobody was like that. Or I felt that way. Maybe there were people like that, but
There
um,
definitely were.
they found ways to cope with it, and I didn't. I'm actually finishing a master's right now, and it's difficult, but it's not as difficult as it was for me in high school.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
What's your master's about?
It's going to be a master's as a reading specialist.
Basically, when we were in between sophomore and junior year, we or a group of students in the German class went to Heidenheim, Germany for about 6 weeks. Think of a highlight memory when you were in Germany that you cherish.
Oh God. The highlight was probably puppy love with one of the German students.
Did you drink beer in Germany?
I sure did.
Did you drink beer before, during, and after Germany?
No, no, I wasn't allowed to drink, and I wasn't allowed to go to parties when we were in high school. So I had to find these secret ways to get to these places because I didn't drive. Um, I did drink beer in Germany afterwards. Yes, because then I got my driver's license and was able to get around to these parties. So yes.
Let's just talk about, graduation, which I believe was May 1988. What was your state of mind? Why did you choose Germany as a place to go after high school graduation? What did your parents and friends think about that? Because that's a little bit of a unusual choice to do that.
Yes. It was, I just wanted to, I loved being there, that when we were there. And I don't know, I just loved the country. I think I just wanted to get away from home. So I don't think I really even had a plan. I just wanted to be in Germany.
When you used to live in Hawaii and you're on the mainland or anywhere else in the world, and you tell someone that you grew up in Hawaii, they always ask, well, what was that like? So when you get that question, what do you say?
I tell them it was amazing and I wish I could go back. I feel like everyone should have that experience. It's special. I like the place I'm in right now, and I'm happy to reconnect with everybody, and I thank you for doing this so that I can get to know people and they can get to know the real me.